The immigration officer looked at the woman standing in front of him and lowered his eyes. He had processed thousands of deportation papers in his career, but never one that made him hesitate. Mrs. Soo-jin, he said quietly, holding the document in his hand. Do you understand what this means? The woman stared at the paper. Her hands trembled, not because
Why?
she was afraid of leaving the country, not
Did you
because she
sign
was
it?
afraid of starting over, but because the man who signed those papers was the same man who once promised he would never let her stand alone. Her husband, Kang Min-jae, the most powerful mafia businessman in South Korea. The man whose name made politicians nervous, criminals disappear, and entire companies surrender. 3 days earlier, he had looked into his wife's eyes and made the coldest decision of his life. He deported her, not because she betrayed him, not because she committed a crime, but because another woman convinced him that his wife was the greatest threat to everything he had built. And what happened 3 days after Soo-jin left Korea was the secret that destroyed the empire of the most feared man in Seoul. Because when Kang Min-jae finally discovered the truth, he realized he had not protected his future. He had destroyed the only person who ever truly loved him. And the person who revealed the truth was the last person he expected. Before we uncover what happened behind those locked doors, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the biggest battles are not fought with enemies outside our homes, but with the people closest to our hearts. And if you are already watching, comment, "I'm still here," so we know you're following this unforgettable journey. The story began years before the airport lights, before the sign papers, and before a powerful man watched his entire world collapse. Before Kang Min-jae became a name whispered in fear, he was a lonely boy who learned one painful lesson early in life. Trust no one. His father had been betrayed by business partners. His mother had died believing that kindness was a weakness. By the time Min-jae was 25, he had already built a reputation as a man who never showed emotion. People called him ruthless, cold, unreachable. But behind the expensive suits and the intimidating silence was a man who secretly wished someone could see him as more than a weapon. That person was Soo-jin. She was everything he was not. Where Min-jae was silence, Soo-jin was warmth. Where he was suspicion, she was faith. She was not from a wealthy family. She did not understand the world of billion-dollar deals and dangerous negotiations. She was a simple woman who believed that a person's heart mattered more than their bank account. They met on a rainy evening outside a small bookstore. Min-jae had been walking away from a meeting where one of his closest employees had betrayed him. His face showed nothing. But Soo-jin noticed something nobody else saw. Pain. She watched him standing alone beneath the rain and walked toward him. "You look like someone who forgot how to smile," she said. Min-jae looked at her in disbelief. Nobody spoke to him that way. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. Soo-jin looked at his expensive watch and black vehicle waiting nearby. "No," she replied. "Should I?" For the first time in years, Kang Min-jae laughed. Not a fake laugh. Not the kind he used at business meetings. A real one. And that moment changed everything. Their relationship shocked everyone around them. People wondered why a powerful man like Min-jae would choose an ordinary woman. His friends warned him. "She doesn't belong in your world," they told him. But Min-jae ignored them. Because Soo-jin was the only person who made him forget the darkness surrounding him. On their wedding day, he held her hands and made a promise. "I spent my whole life building walls around myself," he whispered. "But you are the only person I want inside them." Soo-jin smiled. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Never let fear make decisions for your heart." At the time, Min-jae believed that promise would be easy to keep. He was wrong. Years passed. Their marriage became the one peaceful place in Min-jae's dangerous life. But powerful men often attract dangerous people. And one person had been watching their relationship from a distance. Her name was Choi Hai-rin, a wealthy investor's daughter. Beautiful, intelligent, ambitious, and completely determined to become the woman beside Kang Min-jae. She believed she deserved that position, not Soo-jin. To Hai-rin, love was not something you waited for. It was something you took. She entered Min-jae's company as a strategic partner. Slowly, she created opportunities to be around him. Late-night meetings, private conversations, business trips. At first, Min-jae saw nothing suspicious. He trusted his wife. But Hai-rin understood something important. The strongest people often have one weakness, the thing they love the most. And Soo-jin was Min-jae's weakness. One evening, Hyrin walked into Min-jae's office holding a folder. "I found something troubling," she said. Min-jae looked up. "What?" She placed the folder on the desk. "Information about your wife." His expression changed immediately. "What are you talking about?" Hyrin hesitated. A perfect performance of concern crossed her face. "I didn't want to believe it either." Min-jae opened the folder. Inside were documents, photos, financial records, messages, everything designed to create one dangerous illusion. That Soo-jin had been hiding something. "She has been meeting people connected to your enemies," Hyrin said softly. Min-jae stared at the evidence. His jaw tightened. "No. I hope I'm wrong," Hyrin replied. "But powerful men are often destroyed because they refuse to see betrayal from the people closest to them." Those words stayed in his mind, because they sounded like something his father once said. And slowly, the seed of doubt began to grow. At home that night, Soo-jin noticed something different. Min-jae barely spoke. She placed dinner on the table. "You're quiet today." "I'm tired." She looked at him carefully. "You're not tired." He avoided her eyes. "Why do you say that?" "Because I know you." Those 4 words hurt him more than he expected. Because deep inside, he knew she was right. The woman who knew his silence was now standing across from a man who no longer knew how to trust. Days passed. The distance grew. Soo-jin tried to understand. Min-jae became colder, more suspicious. Every phone call, every message, every late arrival. He questioned everything. Finally, one night, Soo-jin confronted him. "What happened to us?" Min-jae remained silent. "Min-jae, look at me." He did, but the warmth in his eyes was gone. "Tell me the truth," he said. Her heart sank. "The truth about what? Who are you really working for?" The question felt like a knife. Soo-jin stepped back. "You think I betrayed you? I think I don't know you anymore." The woman who had spent years healing his wounds felt something inside her break. "I gave you my entire life. And I gave you everything you wanted." "No," she whispered. "You gave me everything except trust." That sentence stayed in the room. But Min-jae was already trapped inside his own fear. And fear makes people believe things they would normally question. 3 days later, Soo-jin was standing at the airport, a deportation order in her hands, a suitcase beside her, and the man she loved was nowhere to be seen. The last message she received from him was only 6 words. "Do not come back to Korea." She read it again and again, waiting for another message, an apology, an explanation, anything. But nothing came. The plane doors closed, and Han Soo-jin left the country believing her marriage was over. But she had no idea that the moment her plane disappeared into the clouds, the truth was already coming for Kang Min-jae. For the first few hours after Soo-jin's plane disappeared from Korean airspace, Kang Min-jae felt something he had not felt in years. Relief. At least, that was what he told himself. He stood inside his private office, staring through the glass walls of the tallest building in Seoul. Below him, millions of people moved through the city. Cars passed. Lights flickered. Life continued. But inside him, something felt strangely empty. He had convinced himself that removing Soo-jin was necessary. He told himself that powerful men could not afford weakness. He told himself that love could not be allowed to interfere with survival. But then he looked at the empty chair across from his desk. The chair where Soo-jin used to sit while waiting for him to finish work. The chair where she would drink tea and complain that he worked too much. The chair where she once told him that money could buy almost anything except peace. For the first time, the silence of his office felt louder than any enemy threatening him. His assistant, Park Jun-ho, entered the room carefully. "Sir." Min-jae did not turn around. "What is it?" "There is something you should know." Min-jae remained silent. Jun-ho hesitated. "I don't believe Mrs. Han betrayed you." Those words immediately changed the atmosphere. Min-jae slowly turned. "Be careful." "I am being careful," Jun-ho replied. "That is why I investigated before saying anything." Min-jae walked toward him. "What did you find?" Jun-ho placed a tablet on the desk. "I checked the evidence used against her." Min-jae looked at the screen. The financial records were altered. His expression hardened. "What?" "The messages were edited. The photos were taken out of context. Someone created a story that made Mrs. Han look guilty." A cold feeling moved through Min-jae. "Who?" Jun-ho swallowed. There is only one person who had access to every piece of information. Min-jae already knew the answer, but he refused to say the name, because admitting it meant accepting something much worse, that he had been manipulated. "That's impossible," Min-jae whispered. Junho looked at him. Sir, sometimes the person standing closest to you is the one hiding the knife. The same words Min-jae once believed about his enemies suddenly sounded different. Because now, he wondered if the knife had never been outside the room. It had been beside him. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Soo-jin arrived in a country she barely knew. No husband, no home, no family waiting for her. The woman who once lived in a mansion now rented a small apartment above an old restaurant. She carried only one suitcase. Inside were a few clothes, some photographs, and the wedding ring she still could not bring herself to remove. Every morning, she woke up hoping she would hear her phone ring. Every night, she went to sleep disappointed. Her friend, Emily, visited her one evening. You still love him? Soo-jin looked away. I don't know anymore. Emily sat beside her. Yes, you do. Soo-jin held back tears. He chose to believe a stranger over me. He was wrong. But he was the person who was supposed to protect me. The room became quiet. Because that was the deepest wound. Not losing the mansion. Not losing the money. Not losing the life she had built. The pain came from realizing that the person who promised to stand beside her was the person who pushed her away. Back in Seoul, Kang Min-jae's world began falling apart. The investigation into Hye-rin revealed more than anyone expected. She had been secretly transferring company information. She had manipulated business contracts. She had even created fake evidence against Soo-jin. But there was one question Min-jae could not answer. Why? Why go so far? The answer came from an old recording discovered inside the company's security system. A recording of Hye-rin speaking to one of her associates. I don't need him to love me, she said. The voice was calm, cold. I only need him to lose the one person he loves. The room went silent. Min-jae listened again. And again. Every word felt like a punishment. Because suddenly, memories returned. Soo-jin waiting for him. Soo-jin defending him. Soo-jin standing beside him when everyone else left. And he remembered the promise he made on their wedding day. Never let fear make decisions for your heart. But he had broken that promise. Not because he was weak. Because he allowed fear to control him. That night, for the first time in decades, Kang Min-jae cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a man sitting alone in a dark office realizing he had destroyed the only beautiful thing he ever owned. The next morning, he made a decision. He would find Soo-jin. He would apologize. He would fix what he had broken. But when his assistant contacted immigration records, they discovered something unexpected. Soo-jin was no longer where they thought she was. She had disappeared. Min-jae's heart stopped. What do you mean disappeared? Junho looked uncomfortable. Sir, after she arrived, someone contacted her. Who? We don't know. Min-jae grabbed the file. Find her. But as his team searched, a shocking discovery appeared. Soo-jin had not left because she wanted revenge. She had left because she was protecting a secret she had hidden from everyone, including her husband. 3 days after her deportation, Min-jae received a package. No sender, no address, only his name written on the front. Inside was a small envelope, and inside that envelope was a photograph. Min-jae froze, because the photograph showed Soo-jin standing beside a little girl, a child he had never seen before. On the back of the picture were 5 words. Ask your wife about her. His hands began shaking. For the first time in years, Kang Min-jae was afraid. Not of losing money, not of losing power, but of discovering that the woman he abandoned had been carrying a burden alone. He immediately called Soo-jin's number. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered. A voice he thought he would never hear again. Soo-jin. Silence. Then she spoke. Why are you calling me? Her voice was different. Not angry. Not emotional. Just tired. I need to see you. No. Soo-jin, please. A painful laugh came through the phone. Please. The word hit him. Because he remembered every time she had begged him to believe her. Every time she asked him to listen. And he had ignored her. I know about the photograph, he said. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Soo-jin whispered. So you found out. Min-jae closed his eyes. Who was that child? Another silence. Then Soo-jin answered. She is the reason I stayed silent. His heart raced. What does that mean? It means the truth is bigger than you think. Soo-jin, tell me. But she refused. Not over the phone. Where are you? I will send you an address. Before he could respond, she added. Come alone. The call ended. And for the first time since he built his empire, Kang Min-jae followed someone else's instructions. Because deep inside, he knew. Whatever secret Soo-jin had been protecting, it could change everything. 2 days later, Min-jae arrived at a quiet neighborhood far away from the luxury streets of Seoul. No bodyguards, no expensive cars, no power. Just a man searching for the woman he had lost. He knocked on the door. It opened slowly, and standing there was Soo-jin. She looked different, older, stronger, but her eyes were the same eyes that once looked at him with love. Now they looked at him with pain. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Min-jae whispered, "I'm sorry." Soo-jin looked down. "I waited a long time to hear those words." His voice broke. "I was wrong. Yes. I hurt you. Yes. I destroyed our marriage. Yes." Every answer was painful because she was not trying to punish him. She was simply telling the truth. Then a small voice came from inside the house. "Mommy." Min-jae froze. A little girl walked into the room. She looked at Soo-jin, then at him, and the moment their eyes met, Min-jae felt like the world stopped. Because the child had his eyes. The same eyes he saw every morning in the mirror. Soo-jin watched his reaction, and softly said, "Min-jae, this is your daughter." The room went completely silent. The most feared man in Korea stood frozen. Not because of danger, not because of enemies, but because he suddenly realized the greatest tragedy of his life. He had deported the woman he loved. While she was carrying the last piece of his family, Kang Min-jae had faced armed men without fear. He had walked into rooms where everyone wanted him destroyed. He had watched enemies threaten everything he built. But nothing prepared him for standing inside that small apartment, looking at a child who carried his blood. His daughter. The little girl stared back at him with innocent curiosity. She did not understand why the tall man in front of her looked like he had just lost everything. Because in a way, he had. "Soo-jin," Min-jae whispered. His voice was barely audible. When Soo-jin looked away. 3 years ago. The answer felt like another blow. 3 years. 3 years of birthdays. 3 years of first words. 3 years of moments he would never get back. Min-jae looked at the little girl. "What is her name?" Soo-jin hesitated. "Han Ji-eun." A tear escaped his eye. Not because he was angry, because he imagined all the moments he missed. Her first steps. Her first day of school. The first time she called someone father. Moments that could never return. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out broken. Soo-jin looked at him. And for the first time, Min-jae saw the pain she had carried alone. "Because I tried." The room became quiet. "What?" "I tried to tell you." Min-jae stared at her. Soo-jin walked to a drawer and pulled out an old envelope. "I wrote this letter before you deported me." She handed it to him. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a letter addressed to him. A letter he had never received. Because it had been intercepted. The first sentence almost destroyed him. "Min-jae, I know you are angry, but before you make a decision you cannot undo, please let me tell you something." He continued reading. Soo-jin explained that she had discovered she was pregnant shortly before everything changed. She wanted to surprise him. She wanted to tell him on their anniversary. But before she could, Hyrin started spreading lies. And Min-jae stopped listening. The woman he loved had been carrying his child while he accused her of betrayal. The guilt became unbearable. Min-jae lowered the letter. "I sent you away." His voice cracked. "I sent away my wife and my daughter." Soo-jin did not answer. Because there was nothing she could say that would hurt him more than the truth already had. At that moment, little Ji-eun walked closer. "Are you crying?" Min-jae quickly wiped his face. "No." The little girl tilted her head. "My mommy says people cry when their hearts are heavy." Those words broke something inside him. Because they were Soo-jin's words. The same kindness. The same warmth. The same heart. He slowly knelt down. "Your mommy is very smart." Ji-eun smiled. "She says I look like my father." Min-jae looked at Soo-jin. A painful silence passed between them. Because he knew. She had kept a piece of him alive for years. Even after he abandoned her. Even after he broke her heart. The days that followed changed Kang Min-jae completely. For the first time, the powerful businessman stopped thinking like a leader. He started thinking like a father. He learned Ji-eun's favorite food. He learned the songs she liked. He learned that she was afraid of thunderstorms and always slept with a small stuffed rabbit. Simple things. Things money could never buy. One evening, he sat beside Soo-jin while Ji-eun slept. "I don't know how to fix this." Soo-jin looked at him. "Some things cannot be fixed." The words hurt. But he knew she was right. "I know." "Then why are you here?" Min-jae looked toward the bedroom. Because I missed 3 years with my daughter. He paused. And because I spent years protecting my empire while destroying my family. Soo-jin remained silent. I thought being powerful meant never making mistakes. He looked down. But real strength is admitting when you are wrong. For the first time in a long time, Soo-jin saw something different. Not the billionaire. Not the mafia boss. Just the man she fell in love with. But forgiveness was not something that happened overnight. Trust was not rebuilt with one apology. It was rebuilt through actions. And Min-jae knew he had a long road ahead. Meanwhile, Hyrin was not finished. After discovering Min-jae had found Soo-jin, she panicked. Everything she built was collapsing. She had lost control of the company. Her lies were exposed. Her reputation was destroyed. But she still believed she could win. Because she knew something about Min-jae. She knew his enemies were waiting. And she decided to use them. She contacted the very people Min-jae had spent years fighting. Her plan was simple. Destroy his empire. Then make him come back to her for help. But she underestimated one thing. The man who had once been controlled by fear was no longer the same person. When Min-jae discovered Hyrin's final plan, he did not respond with anger. He responded with truth. He exposed everything publicly. The fake evidence. The manipulation. The betrayal. The world watched as the most powerful man in Korea admitted his greatest mistake. Not a business failure. Not a financial loss. But failing the woman who loved him. Many people expected him to destroy Hyrin. Instead, he simply said, "She does not need revenge from me. The truth is enough." Those words surprised everyone. Because the old Kang Min-jae would have chosen punishment. The new one chose peace. And that was when people realized something. Soo-jin had not only loved him. She had changed him. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to like this video and comment below. Love needs trust. Let us know what lesson you are taking from Min-jae and Soo-jin's journey. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join our community for more emotional stories that remind us about the power of forgiveness, family, and second chances. Months passed. Kang Min-jae stepped away from the dangerous world that once controlled his life. He changed the way he ran his company. He spent more time with his daughter. And slowly, very slowly, he began rebuilding the trust he had broken. 1 year later, on Ji-yoon's birthday, something unexpected happened. Min-jae arrived at Soo-jin's home carrying a small gift. Not an expensive one. Not something bought to impress her. Something he made himself. A wooden picture frame. Inside was a photograph of the three of them. Soo-jin looked at it quietly. "You made this?" He nodded. "I wanted to give you something money could never buy." She touched the frame. "What? Effort?" The answer surprised her. Because years ago, Min-jae thought love was proven by protection, by wealth, by power. Now he understood. Love was proven by showing up. Soo-jin looked at him. "You know I cannot forget what happened." "I know. And I cannot pretend the pain disappeared." "I know." She looked into his eyes. "But I see that you are trying." Min-jae nodded. Every day, the silence between them was no longer painful. It was peaceful. Because sometimes love does not return the way it was. Sometimes it returns stronger. Not because the past is forgotten, but because the people involved finally understand its value. Years later, when Ji-yoon was older, she asked her father a question. "Why did you and Mommy almost lose each other?" Min-jae smiled sadly. "Because I believed lies faster than I believed the person who loved me." Ji-yoon looked confused. "Why?" He looked at Soo-jin, who was sitting nearby. "Because sometimes people spend their whole lives learning how to fight enemies." He paused. "But they forget how to protect the people standing beside them." That became the lesson of Kang Min-jae's life. A man who had everything, lost the one thing that mattered most. A man who was feared by thousands, was humbled by the love of one woman. And a man who thought power could protect him, learned that trust was the greatest protection of all. Because the truth is, people rarely lose the things they love because of their enemies. Sometimes they lose them because they stop listening. They stop believing. They let fear speak louder than love. And sometimes, the person we push away is the person who is fighting hardest to stay. So remember the story of Kang Min-jae and Han Soo-jin. A story about betrayal. A story about forgiveness. A story about a man who had to lose his family before he understood its worth. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of love, mystery, and life lessons. Leave a comment telling us where you are watching from and what moment in this story touched your heart the most. And never forget, A broken promise can be repaired. A wounded heart can heal. But the people we love should never have to leave before we realize their value.